Thank you so much to the TCS team. And for those of you who represent other ecosystems, other places, other emerging worlds, we want you to envision what this could look like in your place. So I know we have some people here who represent Slovakia and Mexico and other places. Think about what this might look like if you were to engage. If you're with an organization that's a member of the Media Lab, think about what this could look like if you were to either join the efforts with TCS or to create your own initiative elsewhere with us. So with that, I wanted to say we're running late, so here's the plan. Bill Aulet is our next speaker, and he has to run very quickly, so we wanted to have everybody stand up, do a very, very quick stretch, and just do a little dance in your seat, in your space. Bill Aulet will come up. I want to give you all a chance to know how amazing Bill Aulet is. If you haven't heard of Bill or worked with him before, he's somebody that is a leader at MIT in the world of entrepreneurship. He's written a terrific book called Disciplined Entrepreneurship, which he uses as the base for his Global Founder Skills Accelerator program. And he's the managing director of the Martin Trust Center for Entrepreneurship here at MIT. And he's got a lot of great experience, great stories, and without further ado, let me introduce Bill.
Thank you, Beth. Do I have to stand up, sit down, wherever you like to. Do I have to stand in front of this, or can I walk around and talk? All right, so this is very interesting. Do I have to? Oh, okay. All right. So where are you all from? You have Mexico. Who's from Slovakia? Okay. What other countries do we have here? Argentina? Mexico? Where else?
City of Detroit.
City of Detroit? Where else?
I'm from Wake Forest, but originally from Peru.
Peru, yeah. Where else? Aren't. We have, I brought over these things which describe what we do. And for those of you who want them, we can just pass them around. Take one for your table or whatever. And if you want, send an email to Beth, and I'll send you an electronic copy, and we can save trees. So I'm willing to talk about whatever you want. What Beth asked me to talk about was the myths about entrepreneurship. And then being ADHD walking over here, I thought of two more that I would add that I think are particularly relevant to what you all are thinking about. But this is something that was a presentation that was very popular about lies that. Does this work? How do I turn the slides? Oh, it's working now. You know, the funny thing is, MIT, the T in MIT stands for technology, yet we don't know how to use technology very well when it comes to these types of things. All right, so is there a way to just do this manually? Just when I go like this, change the slide, okay? So, you know, entrepreneurship is off the charts popular right now. Everybody is into entrepreneurship. The only thing that's more popular than that is innovation. I don't really understand what innovation is anymore because everything today is innovative. You know, but let me tell you, entrepreneurship, I feel that we know what that is. That's something where people go in, or individual goes in and creates a new organization where there was no organization before to solve a problem or to recognize an opportunity. But in that, there's a lot of myths about entrepreneurship that I just want to dispel here, and then I want to get to two that I think are particularly relevant to the emerging world. So can we go to the next slide, please? The next one, please. Next one. The first one is entrepreneurs are mercurial individualists. So this is a story that you hear all the time. And it's written especially after the fact that Bill Gates was this mercurial individualist. He took on the odds. Steve Jobs was this mercurial individualist. He took on the odds and overcame it, stuffed it to everybody else. That actually is not true when you do the research. It turns out that if you rewind it and look at when things started, what it is it's teams. Entrepreneurship isn't an individual sport. after the fact, it's rewritten that there was this one individual who pushed it and nobody else was there. That's not true. There's usually a leader, but teams make it successful. The research done by Ed Roberts here at MIT with thousands of companies shows that you're much less likely to be successful if you're an individual founder. Your odds are much higher if you're two. And guess what? If you have 3 on your team, that's higher than 2. And 4 is better than 3. It starts leveling off as you go along. But it's not individuals. And it's a team sport. And never has this been more true than today. This is, the situations are getting more complex with regulatory, with international markets, financing options of just all over the board. Individuals don't start companies. It's teams of people that start companies. Secondly, go to the next one. Entrepreneurs are they're so smart. They're off the charts. You know, everybody else is an 8-bit processor, and the entrepreneur is a 256-bit processor. We're at MIT. I can use things like that. They're just no more. That's just not the case. I mean, when you think about it and you see these people, they're often very, very passionate about one area, and it's very, very rare that you find someone who's been valedictorian of their class, and they are also a successful entrepreneur. It's actually anti-correlated, because valedictorians are always doing what the system wanted them to do. Entrepreneurs are saying, I'm very interested in this, screw all that other stuff, that's stupid, you know. And so it's this kind of ability to focus and figure out what's important and go after it that's much more important than raw intelligence. Can we go to the next one? Entrepreneurs are born, not made. There's this belief that, there's a gene, there's if your parents were entrepreneurs, you're more likely to be an entrepreneur. There's no data, there's no gene, first of all, for entrepreneurship. I was actually at a conference and I did this with all these academics. First of all, I'm not a real academic. I'm an accidental academic. But I said this and they said, no. We have this data and it shows that maybe 20% of it has to do with nature, not nurture. And we had this ridiculous discussion about it, that showed, and they were trying to argue that maybe 20% of it was. Well, if that's true, that's still dominated by the 80% that isn't. So again, Ed Roberts' research, looking at thousands of entrepreneurs, shows that if you're no more likely to be an entrepreneur if your parents were entrepreneurs than if you were an entrepreneur. You're no more likely to be an entrepreneur if your parents were entrepreneurs than if they weren't. By the way, an interesting thing was, well, you have to have a PhD to start. It turns out that is negatively correlated. I don't know how many PhDs you have here. How many PhDs do we have? A lot? Don't worry, you can overcome this if you work very hard. But it turns out that has a negative correlation, that people who are PhDs have a negative correlation. Now, again, these are statistics, but I'm just trying to point out that these beliefs that people have about entrepreneurship are not based in fact, they're just based in anecdote. By the way, this is a data point of 1. My parents didn't even understand. There was nobody in my family or surrounding area that was an entrepreneur growing up. It actually was when I came to MIT that I really understood what entrepreneurship was. And so it has to do with nurture, certainly in my case, and that's backed up by the broader data. Next one, please. This is one I love too. Entrepreneurs love risk. Entrepreneurs are risk takers. What a load of garbage. I would never buy a lottery ticket or go to a casino and bet on 64 and think that was a good thing. Maybe I'll do it for entertainment's sake or something, but that's absurd. And no good entrepreneur would ever do that. What entrepreneurs do is they understand how to manage risk. It's like the movie 21, the MIT blackjack team. Those guys, people, they were taking risks. They weren't taking risk. They understood the math, and they understood that if they could count the cards to a certain, the odds were in their favor. And entrepreneurs are willing to accept loss in the short term because they know the odds are in their favor in the long term. What entrepreneurs do is they manage risk and they take intelligent risks, where the upside is much more than the downside. So this concept that entrepreneurs love risk is just not helpful, and it's not right. Next one, please. Number 5, entrepreneurs are successful because they're charismatic. Just walk around MIT and you'll understand that this is not true. Entrepreneurs learn how to sell effectively at some point, but the concept that they have some God-given charisma, it just isn't the case. It has a lot more to do with other things than charisma. Much like leadership, people think leadership is about charisma. No, the data shows that that's not true. Next one is entrepreneurs are lucky. This is why they're lucky. And if lucky means when preparation meets opportunity that you're lucky, then they are lucky. Because much like, and it's not a rigorous book, Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers shows that, the quote 10,000 hours getting ready to help you for when that opportunity comes up. So, good entrepreneurs anticipate opportunity and they get ready for it. Like, famous quote from Gretzky, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going. Last one is entrepreneurs are undisciplined. They're undisciplined. These entrepreneurs, they're crazy. No, that's just categorically not true. And let me just give you, again, a data point of one myself. I worked at IBM for 11 years. I used to dress up in a Brooks Brothers blue suit, 42 long, starch white shirt every day, red tie, and go to work. I was on time. I did everything you were supposed to do. Was I disciplined? Well, maybe some people would say that I was disciplined. Let me tell you what I call discipline. Discipline is running a startup, and that if you don't get the job done, you don't make payroll. that if you get the product built and you sell it to the customer, and they don't pay for it, you don't make payroll. And if you don't make payroll, people lose their jobs. And oh, by the way, you might get your tires slashed. And people post stuff about you on the internet. That creates a level of rigor and discipline in your life that was far beyond what I had at IBM. And it's the same thing when you look at great entrepreneurs, too. So I'm going to run out of time here, and there's going to be no... So the two that I wanted to mention are the concept that entrepreneurship can be forced on people. Entrepreneurship, these governments say, I want to force entrepreneurship on it. Entrepreneurship, there's a great movie, I can't remember the name of it. It was in India, and it said, the crazy person says, a bird sings from within. The bird sings from within. Look, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to have the urge to be an entrepreneur. And you can create an environment where it's okay to be an entrepreneur, but much like if you have a kid and you want your kid to be a basketball player, guess what? You can want them to be a basketball player, and you can take them to all the camps in the world, and you can hire the best coaches. And if they don't want to be a basketball player, they will not be a basketball player. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. It's this decentralized thing that has to come from within and come from bottoms up. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out in other areas. The other one that I was thinking about on the way over here is entrepreneurship is the same around the world. That's just not true. When you look at the United States, there's kind of the stable government, and there's this kind of bottoms-up driving it, and there's a facilitation, positive or negative, by the government. People say, well, Michael Bloomberg created entrepreneurship in New York. It's a thriving. That's just rubbish. It was happening, and he facilitated it, but it came from bottoms up. But when you look at places like the Middle East, there's a book called Startup Rising. And it shows that, if you've been to the Middle East, you see it's different there. The governments, or Argentina. Where's our friend from Argentina? Yeah. You can't count on the government to force it down. It just won't happen. The government's changing all the time. It's just a totally different environment. And so this model of the Middle East and the emerging worlds where entrepreneurship is bottoms up, and it has to be bottoms up, and there might be negative impact by the tops down, is much more so. Now, when you go to China and you go to Korea and you go to Japan, they have much more of a tops-down focus on entrepreneurship right now. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this all works out. Now, very, very interesting. So in emerging worlds, we're very interested at MIT, and we study entrepreneurship a lot, to see how this model is going to work from the bottoms up, the startup rising, without the kind of stable government we have here with people like Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. That was sarcasm, just so we're clear. Those people are complete lunatics. But we can learn a lot from the work we're doing around the world. We have something called the Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program to see that. So hopefully when you come here to MIT, you'll learn from us some of the things that we do. But we also need to learn from you about the flavor of entrepreneurship we have here at MIT is not just transposed into developing worlds, be it India, be it Pakistan, be it Bangladesh. We're seeing that they're very, very significant in Egypt. There's very, very different flavors of entrepreneurship. There are fundamental principles that are the same, but then it's very, very different. So I have reached my limit, not of what I could spew at you, but time-wise. Are there any questions that people have? No, that was crystal clear. Yes, Ramesh.
So you talked about trying to manage the innovation process and letting people figure out their way.
Yeah.
What do you do? We were talking about it earlier. What do you do in a scenario where the challenges are complex enough that only startups on their own cannot do it, and they need some other ecosystems? For example, like you said, if there's access to data or regulatory issues, how can we accelerate?
So I think the good news now is that governments worldwide, almost everywhere now today, feel entrepreneurship is a good thing. Now, if we go back just 10 years, there are some places in the world, they feel entrepreneurship is an evil thing. So if you go to Andalusia, Spain, and you say, I'm an entrepreneur, they say you took advantage of someone, right? Whereas if you come in the United States, if you say you're an entrepreneur, it's like you're a great person, right? So I think the first thing is that keeping this positive impression of entrepreneurs as being people who can positively change the world. And when you see companies like Caithworks and Sanergy and what Shop Soko is doing, these are companies that have come out of MIT, and you'll see some of them in that annual report. And some of the stuff you're doing, Ramesh, entrepreneurship is getting a very positive thing. So the government can't drive it, but it sure can kill it by not supporting entrepreneurs. And you see in some of these countries where the government's so unstable that when somebody makes money, then someone knocks on their door and they're supposed to get a payback for it. Or they might take over the company. What happens is then the money is never invested in the business. They immediately get it out of the country so that if something happens, they still have their money and they don't invest in the business. So the first thing is creating an environment where the government is not creating entrepreneurship, but it's stable and allows entrepreneurship to go on in a positive way. Then I think it's just a matter of what we can do here at MIT. What we're looking to do, and you know about this, is to entrepreneurship, inclusive entrepreneurship education at scale. Not educating a dozen people, not educating 100 people, not educating thousands of people, but hundreds of thousands of people through the MIT X platform. The work that Sanjay Sarma is doing and Erdine Beshemoff, we now have hundreds of thousands of people taking online entrepreneurship classes. If you look at Entrepreneurship 101, 102, has anybody taken Entrepreneurship 101 or 102 here? No. Yes? I've read the book. You've read the book. So that's a good start. Did you consider the book epic or legendary? Legendary. Those were the only two options. But this class, Entrepreneurship 101, we just were in Korea. And I'll just give you a story. I'm getting shivers from it, because we just went to Korea. And of the hundreds of thousands of people take it, you can tell by looking at their click stream who does particularly well, who's committed, and then they find those people and they interview those people, and they allow people to come to a global boot camp. And we were just in Seoul, South Korea, and if I could show you the emails, it would blow your mind, or you can go on Twitter and see what people said. I walked in, and I met the first person I'd ever met who was just in Afghanistan, not like an American. This was an Afghani person. I met two people who were from Syria who had to leave Syria and go to Lebanon to get to come to this boot camp. I met someone from Iran. People from all over the world had come because they had been included in this online class. There was no friction, no cost. They could take it, and then they found their way to come to this boot camp to get trained in entrepreneurship. And not, now granted, there were only 70, 80 people there, but all those people, there were thousands, tens of thousands of people who took the online course, and those people are now educated in quality entrepreneurship. There's no way that we could teach all those people here at MIT. There's no way. But we're doing that through the use of MITx. So I would say that's the way that we are positively impacting this. And I think it's also changing the perception. We have to. There's no, look, the problems we face as a world as far as healthcare, jobs, energy, environment, you name it, are not going to be solved by governments sitting around and coming up with things. They can facilitate it, but it's going to be what's always been historically. That is the indomitable, innovative, I hate to use that word, that indomitable spirit of human beings, entrepreneurial spirit, to attack these problems in their own way. And that's what's going to help save the world. So with that light message, I think I'll let you go to lunch. Is that right, Beth? Not yet? Okay. Thank you all. Good luck at your conference.
So much, Phil.